What is up, people? The internet, it is me, Real American Politics, back in with a new video, and today, it is time that we do some debunking. That is right, folks. Today, we're doing another one of those poll reading type of videos, trying to explain to people what the poll actually says and how to actually read polls. Because I am getting so sick and tired of some of these people on Twitter that, you know what, I'm going to dedicate a whole video giving the basic explanation to how to read a poll, alright, and how good a pollster really is. Because, boy, people melted down when this poll came out. So if you don't know, the gold standard of polling is, of course, Big Data Poll. Of course, the pollster is Richard Barris. Phenomenal pollster, the best in the country. And essentially, he had this poll in Michigan, I think Michigan 3rd, yes. And John Gibbs, you know, the based America First candidate, trying to primary out Peter Meijer, he's up by 18. And boy, did people melt down. They went around on Twitter claiming, "This is incorrect, there's no way, it's an internal, all this nonsense." It's complete garbage that these people still are denying who a good pollster is, and they just deny the fact that, you know, Peter Meijer is not well liked in Michigan 3rd. What a freaking surprise. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of a analysis on the one, the only Big Data Poll. I'm going to prove to you today that they are in fact the best pollster in the country, and I'm going to expose some myths about them because some of these freaking allegations about them, you know, faking polls and all this other garbage, I'm losing brain cells every second I listen to some of these people. So, buckle in, folks. This is going to be a very intriguing video. Now, before I forget, of course, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, and yes, of course, go follow that mysterious Twitter account in the description down below. And yeah, so let's get right into it today. Also join the channel, almost forgot that for a second. So let's get into it. So people are melting down over this, that John Gibbs, you know, is beating Peter Meijer by 18 points. Now, people are going to use some, you know, debunking. For example, they say this is a poll that was sponsored by John Gibbs for Congress, which is true. But people need to understand, an internal poll doesn't necessarily mean it should be fully discredited. Sure, maybe there's a little bit of bias, depending on the pollster. But this is big data. One of the best pollsters, if not the best pollster in America. And we'll get to that in a little bit, proving they are number one. And, well, essentially, they have Gibbs up by 18. And all these people on Twitter are saying, that's impossible. Peter Meijer's so popular. No, he isn't. I mean, look, before the gun vote, maybe you can make the argument that, hey, maybe, just maybe he can pull it off. But after a couple of votes related to guns, yeah, I think that kind of sunk his campaign completely. So Peter Meijer, yeah, it's not good. It's not good what he did, and I think that really sunk his campaign. I do think John Gibbs was going to win either way, but he's pulling ahead right now, and when Trump does his rally, it's kind of over for this clown. And he also shows John Gibbs actually wins this district, according to this poll. Now, again, I know these people are going to say, but you see here, it's big data. They're not reliable. I cannot believe I have to talk about this, but they are, in fact, the best pollster in America. So let's start from the beginning. 2020. The 1 year in recent history where nearly every single pollster, not even three pollsters weren't even that good. There were two that I would consider acceptable. A third one maybe you could say is above mediocrity, maybe. But there's only two that I would consider did good in 2020. First one was Trafalgar. Yes, they had some misses here and there, but the average miss in 2020 was bad for polling. But outside of that, the best pollster, in my opinion, was Big Data. And, you know, this is the thing that people need to look at. This was Richard Bear's polling, all right? This was him polling the states in 2020. This was his polling results. And we're going to go over each poll and actually explain how to read a poll. Because I'm getting so sick and tired of these people, because immediately you're going to say, well, he had Arizona going to Blumph. It clearly went to Biden by, what, like under a point? Yeah, under a third of a point. Whoop-de-frickin-do. He also had Pennsylvania going for Trump, etc., etc. And when you look at all that, you may make the argument, well, Bears missed a couple states. No! This is the one thing people purposely miss on purpose because it doesn't fit their narrative. There's something called margin of error. And this is something the loser right on Twitter, they don't want to admit exists. But it does. For example, Arizona. So you look in the crosstabs. Again, I think it's critical to always look inside of the crosstabs. They're the best way to see, the polling, all right? And you look at the poll, and it had Trump up by 2.7 points. Well, Biden, quote-unquote, ended up winning the state by about around a third of a point. The expected margin of error, the sampling error, is 3.1% in this poll. So he fit right in with the sampling error. If you don't understand, that's a good thing. If you're within the sampling error, it doesn't matter. In my opinion, that's a miss. Whatever. You're within the margin of error, whoopee-doo. If you don't know what margin of error is, essentially it's like, okay, you polled 900 people, you're going to have a sampling error of like 3.1%. Like, you're going to miss probably by a couple points or so. And that's the big thing people need to realize. These polls have margin of error. And, well, the margin of error in this poll was 3.1%. So he was within the margin of error for this poll. Pennsylvania, quite clearly in. He had Trump up by a point. Trump, quote-unquote, lost the state by 1.3%. Within the margin of error of 3%, 3.1%. You see my point. Yes, he technically got the state wrong, but the margin of error he was within the margin of error, all right? So with that in mind, his polls in 2020 were perfect. And unlike other pollsters that were miss all the same way, he had some misses towards Trump. For example, look at this, all right? Or towards Trump, yeah. He had some misses towards Biden, like Arizona and Pennsylvania, but some misses towards Trump. For example, he had Trump losing Wisconsin by 2. Reality, he lost it by under a point. You go here in Minnesota, had him losing by 11. Well, Biden lost this by around 7, all right? And again, that may have been outside the margin of error by a point, but you can maybe make the argument, there's a lot of Kanye West voter memes and all that good stuff here. But the point is, you look at his 2020 polling, and it's overall a very solid record, all right? Only one poll that maybe was outside the margin of error, and that was Minnesota, but Minnesota had some weird polling in 2020, so even then, you look at the other polls, he was spot on. And also in September, he pulled Ohio. I couldn't find the poll, but in Ohio, he was basically off by like 0.1%. Basically spot on. So you could see here, this is phenomenal polling. So 2020 already establishes that Barris knows what he's doing. And again, I'm not saying I'm an expert at this. Look, I am no polling expert whatsoever. I just know basic polling things like, hey, sampling error, that exists. But that's not the only thing people critique him for. This is the one thing that also I shot myself in the foot with. Georgia. So this is the biggest criticism of Barris. This is whole, you see here, he had Brian Kemp, barely avoiding a runoff. That means he's a bad pollster. First of all, again, margin of error. This was a sample size of 775 votes. Second of all, he had Kemp at 52.5%, all right? And sure, he ended up with, 70? But you look at that bottom number, undecideds. They're around 13% undecided. Well, most of them broke for Kemp. And you look at Perdue's number, it's basically spot on to what he actually got. What really happened in Georgia was unexpected turnout. I mean, there's a lot of low information voters that voted in Georgia. not realizing who Trump endorsed. I mean, there was a poll that came out the day before the election that I didn't hear about till after the election that only 40% of voters realized Purdue was endorsed by Trump. And that's what I think these polls had a problem with, all right? I think they may have asked the question incorrectly. I'm not talking about Barris. I'm just saying other polls. They may have asked it in a way that they knew that Trump was endorsed. Trump endorsed Purdue. That may have been what happened. But even then, he got Purdue's number spot on. You make the argument, undecideds broke for the incumbent, and some of the other voters also went for the incumbent. So it's like, you keep going, it's like, okay, what's the issue with this? And the cope keeps going. I mean, now they're pulling up a poll from, like, I think it was July of 2021 that had, he had, I think, recall losing by, like, 2 points or something like that. It's like, okay, this is in California. Most polls had an incredibly tight back then. Again, that's another thing. These people take polls out of context. Like, they would take a poll from 7 months before the election if it proved a point. Who cares what a poll said 7 months prior? So you could keep going and you realize, yeah, Barris is a phenomenal pollster, and this Michigan third poll, while it has a small sample size, I generally believe that's probably what's going to happen. I think Gibbs is going to run away with it. Anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, and yes, of course, go follow that mysterious Twitter account in the description down below. And, yeah, also follow that mysterious Twitter account and all the other social media stuff. I think I just repeated that, but anyways, folks, we'll see you guys in the next video. Godspeed to all of you.